with a 3-2 series lead over the Pistons after a huge performance last time out. Meanwhile, out west, the Spurs have grabbed momentum back in their series against the Timberwolves and now lead that matchup 3-2 as well. Plenty at stake tonight, and we've got you covered for all the biggest storylines heading into both games. For much more on the NBA playoffs as they continue tonight, let's go ahead and welcome in Noah Buono and John Gonzalez. Gentlemen, great to see you. I just mentioned it, the Cavs, Noah, just one win away and a huge opportunity as they are back home tonight. You think Game 5 maybe exposed the Pistons' secondary scoring issues that we've been chatting about?
I think we've known all postseason that they don't have anybody else they can really rely on outside of Cade Cunningham. Like, if you take Tobias Harris as the lone example, because he's been the second best, most reliable scorer for Detroit this playoffs, games 1, 2, and 3, he was averaging 20 points per game on 50%. Games 4 and 5, he is a combined 13 of 36. 12 of 36 on 33% from the floor. So the drop-off there, and then Jalen Duren is having one of the most historical drop-offs from regular season 19 points per game to postseason 10 points per game of any All-Star in NBA history. And I think that the struggles from those guys and Asar Thompson's limitations offensively as well have not played a part in helping Cade Cunningham. But, I mean, Game 5 was no different than what we've seen, and it's kind of unfortunate because Cade Cunningham has really been spectacular throughout the course of these playoffs.
Yeah, this is why a lot of people were critical of them not adding at the trade deadline. They go out and get Kevin Huerter, who's been basically non-existent in the postseason. But this is a massive indictment of Jalen Duren. He's an all-star. He took the leap. And as Noah mentioned, his points per game from regular season to the playoffs have taken an absolute nosedive. His field goal percentage has taken an absolute nosedive to the point where in Game 5, when it was critical time in the fourth quarter and overtime, J.B. Bickerstaff looked at his bench and went, "Can't play Jalen Duren. I'm going to go with Paul Reed." Paul Reed, who had not played up until that point. And it was absolutely the right call. And now all of a sudden you've got a Jalen Duren situation where he's going into the offseason trying to get a big new contract. He's a restricted free agent. But this is a guy who was looking for major money. I don't know what they do with him. Not only do I not know what they do with him this offseason, I don't know what they do with him in Game 6. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a big Pistons fan, works in the media like us, keen basketball observer, was saying he wouldn't play Jalen Duren at all. This is something that J.B. Bickerstaff has to actually think about going into this game. That's how bad the supporting cast has been around Cade Cunningham and especially Jalen Duren.
So, John, when you look at the Cavs obviously leading this series, as we mentioned, knowing that they have been here before, when you look at it, is Cleveland's experience maybe the difference maker in this series? What do you think?
The experience doesn't hurt, right? But I think it's just top-line talent. I mean, we were just talking about Cade Cunningham not having any help and looking around going, man, I hope Duncan Robinson comes back. And Tobias Harris, you need Tobias Harris to do what he hadn't done in previous iterations in the postseason, which was play well or squeezing something out of Asar Thompson. On the flip side, you've got 4 really talented starters for the Cavaliers between Donovan Mitchell, James Harden, Evan Mobley, and Jarrett Allen. And generally, when you get 3 of those guys to play well, they win, right? Donovan Mitchell, he wasn't super efficient in the last game, but James Harden, who I have been critical of in his postseason career, sometimes you get good James Harden, sometimes you don't. Well, he was awesome in the last couple games. Evan Mobley has been playing really well. Jarrett Allen has been playing really well. So they've got a lot more room for error with their top-line talent, whereas with the Pistons, Cade Cunningham has to play out of his head, which he's been doing, and then on top of that, they need a lot of other things to break right. And certainly in Game 5, that did not happen for the Pistons. About a million different things went wrong. Should have won the game anyway because the no foul call at the end of regulation, and then they collapsed in overtime. But yeah, the Cavs being at home with those guys, they should feel pretty good tonight.
Experience was the #1 thing that lost Detroit the game in Game 5. They went 3 minutes with no buckets down the stretch. Their offense completely dried up. Cade Cunningham was seeing double teams, and I don't really like how passive he was out of those double teams to end the game, knowing no one else on the team was really going to be able to contribute. And Tobias Harris hit that three-pointer that put him up 9, and then that was the last points they scored. And John's right, the foul that happened at the end of the game that was not called definitely hurts Detroit, but refs make mistakes all the time, and I think that the lack of experience not bleeding over into overtime just played into the advantage of Cleveland. And when you look at the starting lineup, like, you got 20 points off the bench from Max Strus, but 86 of the Cavs' 117 points in that Game 5 win came from their big 4, Jarrett Allen, Evan Mobley, James Harden, Donovan Mitchell. And Like there's Cade Cunningham that can give you 30 plus in elimination games, right? He's averaging 36 a game in elimination games this year from being down 3-1 versus Orlando. But no one else on the team, if Tobias Harris isn't going to be a little bit more efficient, can help you. Whereas on the Cleveland side, James Harden can get you 30. In the game prior, in game 4, Donovan Mitchell has a historic second half and puts up 43, I think it was, 42, 43 points. Like, that doesn't exist on this Detroit side. And if Duncan Robinson is hobbled, that's another thing that's going to kill him tonight. But I think overall, like, Cleveland in this spot hasn't been here since LeBron James was on the team back in 2018, a chance to clinch a spot in the conference finals. So it's a big moment for them to be able to do it at home if they can get it done. But I wouldn't really rule the Pistons out. They defensively can have a response. I'm not going to jump ahead and give my pick, but I do think defensively is where Detroit can hang their hat tonight if they want to win this game.
All right, great tease there. Let's get your pick to win. Do the Cavs wrap this thing up tonight, Noah?
I don't think so. I think that when you look at how the Pistons have won games, 5 of their 6 postseason wins this year, they've held their opponents to 101 or less points. I think that the first 2 games they won versus Cleveland in this series, they did just that. I think that if they can bring a different level of physicality defensively and really hang their hat there and just make Cleveland wildly uncomfortable offensively, it's not to say it's that impossible. We've seen them do it in this very series. We've seen them do it throughout the year in which they won 60 games. It does hurt that Jalen Duren has clearly just been a shell of himself and lost his confidence on both ends of the ball. But you just got to move on. Like, if Paul Reed's the guy you got to roll with, if Isaiah Stewart can somehow come in and give you some big minutes, can Dennis Jenkins be a little bit more efficient tonight, but just keep upping his defensive prowess? Like, those things all are going to matter tonight. And obviously Cade's going to need a big game. But I think because of what I saw them do versus an Orlando team that I think we all thought after game 1 was going to beat the Pistons and then went up 3-1 on them, I think we all kind of assumed, oh, Orlando's going to advance. I think because we saw what they were able to do versus that Orlando offense, a much different offense than Cleveland, I wouldn't rule them out doing it to this Cavalier offense tonight and forcing a game 7.
I like everything that Noah just said. I've been on the Pistons all season long. This has been a little bit of a disappointing postseason. This is a team that won 60 games and had the second best defensive rating in the entire NBA during the regular season. And, oh, by the way, an underrated offense, top 10 in offensive rating, but they get everything through the paint. And if you're going to say, all right, well, who's the best player in this series? It's Cade Cunningham. The problem is, as we've outlined previously, the next 4 best guys all play for the other team. They play for the Cavaliers, and the Cavaliers are also at home, and they've been really good in the playoffs at home. They've won all 6 of their games. Their scoring average spikes. They're averaging about 118 points per game at home during the playoffs as opposed to when they're on the road. And yes, they just won that last game, but I think the momentum is with the Cavaliers. The Pistons, as we mentioned, who knows what they're going to get out of anybody not named Cade Cunningham. I would love for the Pistons to figure out a way to win and extend this game to 7, but I just don't see it. I'm thinking the Cavs at home with their 4 guys get it done and go on and play the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals.
All right, house divided there. We'll see what happens, and if we're headed back to Detroit for Game 7, let's leave that there and head out west, guys, where the Spurs have taken the 3-2 series lead over the Timberwolves. They're in this position for a few reasons. That includes Stephon Castle getting it done on both ends. Is he having a breakout moment, John? What do you think?
Yeah, he's been fantastic, right? I mean, obviously Wemby is where everything starts, and you've got De'Aaron Fox, who's the veteran and leading the way, and one of the few guys on that team who has some experience. But Stephon Castle, in only his second year, has been really great. And, you know, the knocks on him for me during the regular season was, okay, I'd like to see his free throw shooting improve and his three-point shooting improve. Well, guess what? In the playoffs, his free throw shooting and three-point percentages have both gone up. And his turnovers per game have also gone up, but they're asking him to do more. Now, Jordan, you also mentioned defense. Yes, that is what makes the Spurs so good, and that is what makes Stephon Castle so good. He plays at both ends. He's a big body. He can get physical with smaller guards, which is a problem for the opposition because he's also hyper athletic, and he can stay with speedy guards because he's so fast. So at only 21, he and Dylan Harper are so far ahead of the curve. Imagine what those 2 guys are going to be in 2 or 3 years when they've got even more experience under their belt and they're still only in their early 20s. I mean, Stephon Castle, forget about even all-star potential. This guy, I think, is going to be all NBA one day.
I completely agree with John. I couldn't be higher on the Stephon Castle train, especially in this series. He had that third quarter flurry where he had a layup, flat-footed dunk. He was just cooking the Minnesota Timberwolves. Nobody could guard him. And the 6 assists per game, like I would go as far to say, with my belief and confidence in Stephon Castle, that I would prefer him on the San Antonio Spurs having the ball in his hands more than I would prefer De'Aaron Fox at this point. I think that like De'Aaron Fox has been bailed out more times than not so far in this postseason because Stephon Castle has alleviated so much pressure from him. When he is playing bad, Stephon Castle is right there to pick up the slack. And the 6 assists prove that. The consistency as a scorer prove that. And then obviously what he brings defensively, him and Dylan Harper, like John mentioned, the fact that they were able to get these guys in back-to-back drafts, and then you factor in you got Wemby in 3 consecutive drafts, like the nucleus here is ridiculous. And I think that Stephon Castle this year has made a big-time leap as becoming one of these all-NBA guys that we'll look at in years to come. And he has elevated and rose to the occasion in this postseason. I just don't expect to see many bad games from him because he's such a competitor. But I really think that what he brings to the San Antonio Spurs is so vital from an offense and a defensive perspective that when I watch him and I watch De'Aaron Fox and I watch Dylan Harper, I want the young guys. I want Dylan Harper and Stephon Castle to control the game, especially with how De'Aaron Fox been a game-time decision. Game 5, he's been a little hobbled. He's been a little streaky. Like it's been so fortunate that he's been able to rely on having Stephon Castle there on his side in the backcourt.
It has been the most fun series to watch, in my opinion. But how do you think this ends? A huge opportunity for a lot of those young pieces, as you mentioned, Noah. Game 6 tonight from Minnesota, 9:30 Eastern. Who you got?
I predicted that the home team would win every game once we got to Game 5, so I'm going to stay with my pick in Minnesota, forcing a Game 7. I don't feel great about it because I don't think it plays into the hand of Minnesota as this series gets longer and they figure out easier ways to guard Anthony Edwards. He hasn't had back-to-back bad games, though. He played bad in Game 2 and then followed it up with 32 and 36 points in Games 3 and 4. He played bad in Game 5. I wouldn't expect him to be or struggle as much tonight, which is going to be key. If he can have his type of game and you can get Jaden McDaniels there to kind of just stay out of foul trouble and lead the show on defense, and can you get a normal Julius Randle game? If he struggles, the Minnesota Timberwolves have absolutely no chance. I just don't know if Minnesota has fully run out of gas here. I don't want to say that they have because I've been counting them out since last year when they opened up as underdogs versus the Los Angeles Lakers in the postseason and then gentlemen swept them out of it. So I'm going to stay with Minnesota because I just don't want to sleep on Chris Finch and what Anthony Edwards can bring to the table on any given night. So I'll say we force a Game 7, or Minnesota forces a Game 7 here, and we get a thriller Sunday.
No, I love the way that you're thinking. You're forcing 2 Game 7s from an entertainment perspective. I love that idea. I am not with you on this. I am with you on disrespecting and overlooking the Minnesota Timberwolves because we've all done it forever, right? I mean, I didn't think they were going to make that first Western Conference Finals, and I didn't think they were going to make it again last year, and then I didn't think they were going to beat the Nuggets. So they continually surprise us. However, there's a limit to this, right? And the Spurs, in their 3 wins, 2 blowouts and 1 that they win really comfortably in this series. The Wolves, 2 wins, both single digits, both squeakers. A lot has had to go right for Minnesota even to win those 2 games. And the Spurs, they just have so many different ways that they can beat the Wolves, and they come at you in waves, and they have the best player on either team. With apologies to Ant, Wemby's just that much better. And then they've got more depth, especially in the backcourt that we mentioned, with Stephon Castle stepping forward and Dylan Harper stepping forward and De'Aaron Fox. And then we haven't even gotten to Devin Vassell and Champagnie, who had a really good regular season, hasn't been that good in the playoffs. Eventually those shots are going to start falling. So as much as I want to be with Noah on this one and say Game 7 sounds awesome, let's do it, I can't get there. I'm going Spurs tonight.
Well, and then Godspeed as you have to go see the defending champs, if that's the case, John Gonzalez. Gentlemen, always great to see you here live on CBS Sports HQ. A big night in the NBA playoffs. 2 Game 6s on tap. It all gets underway at 7 o'clock Eastern time with the Pistons in Cavs. Cleveland with a chance to put this away and then go on to advance to the Eastern Conference Finals, where they will see the Knicks. And then at 9:30 Eastern.